Hi, Sky this month. If my voice is sounding a bit funny, I'm fighting off a bit of a cold. I'm up to here with cold pills, so if I start raving about giant bats and the planet Nibiru, that's probably why. Coming up tonight, the big picture, planetary highlights, lunar highlights, dark nebula this time around, comets and meteors, variable stars, double star. You there, Blake? Yep. And what's come up in spaceflight. I'm thinking next time, just to shake things up, I'm going to start throwing in deliberate lies just to keep people on their toes and not being bored. So this is what the sky is looking like this evening, assuming it actually gets that dark in the city. We've got Jupiter over here getting down towards the horizon. Saturn and Mars are right up. We're a good place to see. The good summer constellations are starting to set, Sagittarius and Scorpius. And when we get to the morning and later in the month, looking off to the east, we actually start to see those winter constellations appearing. Gemini, Canis Major. It doesn't show, but Orion's just off to the left of that screen. Oh no, there's Orion right in the middle there. I was talking about the cold pills. So if you're interested in staying up late, you can get an early start on your winter constellations. If you're doing anything like your Messier certificate or your finest NGC and you don't like being out in the cold, your option is getting up early. The nights are getting longer. Twilight ends at 10 o'clock tonight. It'll start again at 4 in the morning. By the next meeting time, it will end just before 9 o'clock and start at just about 5 o'clock. So we're getting a couple extra hours of observing time. That's good news for you imagers who want to be out for a couple extra hours and get as many photons as you can. Important day is coming up. The new moon will be on September 9th. The moon will be at apogee on the 23rd and perigee on September 8th. For the new people, I like to point this out because if you're ever interested in taking pictures of the moon, take a picture of the moon on one date and the other and compare them in scale. You can see how close and how far the moon gets away from the Earth, and it's surprising how much it is. We have an occultation of Aldebaran by the moon on September 3rd. I don't think it's visible here. I think you need to be up in northern Quebec and northwest territories to see that, but bring it to your attention just in case anybody's traveling or just in case anybody is watching the video from north of 60. Star party season is still going on. I know there are a couple of star parties not affiliated with the RASC coming up in the next few weeks. But I can't tell you exactly which ones they are off the top of my head. August 28th, Mars is stationary. If you like to track planets moving through the sky, and who doesn't, that's the point where Mars stops heading towards the sun from our point of view and starts backing away. If you're interested in tracking it and proving to yourself that the planets travel in elliptical orbits around the sun, this is your big opportunity. Well, come on, who doesn't? The moon, first quarter, August 18th, full moon, August 26th, last quarter, September 3rd, and the new moon on September 9th. I know that if you're a deep sky imager, the full moon is your enemy, but there are lunar certificates to be earned for getting out there and looking for the interesting features on the moon, of which there are many. The next Lunar X is on August 18th. Unfortunately, it's 2 in the afternoon here, but it should be visible with a reasonable telescope. For new people in the club who don't know what the Lunar X is, it's a feature on the moon where you have intersection of two crater walls, and when they're illuminated from a certain angle, they look like an X. And here's a picture of it. You see there's the X right there. I'm not sure if it's all that scientifically interesting, but it's fun to look for. And it's always nice to have a target to drag yourself out of the house and go searching for it on a clear night. The planets coming up. Mercury will be visible in the morning in late August. That's about it. The rest of the time it will be too close to the sun for us to view from around here. Venus, you may have noticed, is getting closer to the sun and lower in the sky each night as the sun sets. It's still amazingly brilliant. You can't miss it. I was looking at it a few days ago, and it is still clearly a half Venus. It is approaching us, so it will be growing bigger and growing more crescent-y. Trying to remember which way it's going. I believe it's going more crescent-y, but I have to check that. You can also check it yourself with any kind of planetarium software or just looking it up in the Observer's Handbook. In the morning, not only will Mercury be visible for a while, but Neptune and Uranus are also visible. Uranus in Aries and Neptune in Aquarius. Neptune is at opposition on September 7th, so that's going to be the best time of the year to view it. With a modest telescope, you'll be able to see the disk. A few moons should be visible if you have the largest telescope, like 12 inches or bigger. Anything smaller than that, you'll be lucky to see Triton orbiting Neptune. Other than that, you're probably not going to see much in the way of outer planet moons. Mars is still well worth having a look at, and I think it's about 93% of its peak right now, and it's going to be getting further and further away as time goes on, but it's still pretty spectacular. It's very bright if you happen to be looking south around once things get dark. Pretty sure I saw some features on the weekend. The polar caps were obvious, or one polar cap was obvious, and I'm pretty sure I saw Syrtis Major. The dust storm seems to have subsided, so features should be becoming more and more visible. Ron was talking about using different filters to look for different features through the dust storm, and I wonder, did anybody try that over the past month, and did they have any luck? Did they? Did it work? Okay. Well, it's always worth trying. The big planets, Saturn and Jupiter. Jupiter's getting a bit closer to the horizon at sunset now. That's bringing up Saturn as the big showcase planet, and I'll be honest, it always has been my favorite. It's just too fun to look at. The rings are wide open. Good time to look for the Cassini gap. It should be obvious with any modest telescope. With a larger telescope, probably 12 inches or better, you may be able to see the Encke gap as well. I have seen it in an 8-inch telescope. The seeing was amazing that night, and Saturn was much higher in the sky than it is now, but it's still worth making the attempt. At the worst, you're going to see Saturn. Jupiter is not as spectacular in my view, but it's still pretty good. People have been reporting that the Great Red Spot is smaller than usual, but the color is more intense. It's redder than it's been in a long time. When I was looking at it on the weekend, I didn't see the Great Red Spot. It was on the wrong side of the planet. But I'm be curious to see if other people have that experience and whether they've had any luck spotting the GRS. Pluto is still in Sagittarius, so it's going to be a tough find. It's surrounded by an awful lot of stars brighter than it is. I would not call it a visual target, but if you're a patient person and want to take photos night after night and compare them, your odds are pretty good that you'll be able to pick it up. I think it's somewhere in the 14th magnitude range right now, and it's probably not going to get any better for a few years at least until it gets out of the Milky Way. The other minor planet we can see from Earth easily, Ceres, is getting too close to the sun for reasonable observation. The other ones are all out in the Kuiper belt, and they're pretty much out of reach of anything any of us have in the way of telescopes. For deep sky stuff this month, I've decided to poke around in the world of dark nebula, because they hardly ever get mentioned. The easiest ones to see, what you need to do is get out of the city somewhere where you can see the Milky Way. And once you can see the Milky Way, you can see the big black rift going down the middle of it. And that is the biggest and most obvious of the dark nebula. It's the Cygnus and Vulpecula rifts. The Milky Way should be solid stars along there. The fact that it isn't means that we're looking at clouds of cold, dark hydrogen gas and dust and what other crap is floating around in the Milky Way that hasn't been turned into stars yet. M8 and M20, the Trifid and Sagittarius, the Trifid and Lagoon Nebula and Sagittarius are both excellent places to go looking for dark nebula, because they are nice bright nebula to start with, and you can clearly see the dark streaks out in front of it. So once again, you've got spectacular things to look at, as well as your interested target. The Northern Coal Sack and Barnard's E Cloud are both recommended objects in the list of dark nebula you'll find near the back of your observer's handbook. They are lousy urban targets. I don't think I'd even bother trying to find them in the city, but if you're out in the country, if you can get out in the country, get out to the observing night out at Long Sault, then you should have no problem finding any of these big, obvious dark nebula. My favorite dark nebula is LDN 935, and you know it best as the Gulf of Mexico in the North American nebula. The North American nebula is, it's bright and big and interesting, but the reason it makes a good tourist target for amateur astronomers is because it does look so much like North America, and it's that Gulf of Mexico feature that makes it, that gives it that resemblance. It can be seen in binoculars. In theory, it should be visible in the naked eye. I haven't been able to manage it. My eyes are not that great. Has anybody here had any luck finding the North American nebula naked eye? What Blake has? Maybe? Okay. So then if you've seen the North America, you've inadvertently seen the dark nebula that goes with it. And there's a picture of it. And yeah, there's that obvious Gulf of Mexico in between Florida and Mexico there. And there's a ton of glowing red nebulosity behind it, which you can find with your infrared telescopes. But the fact that we can't see it tells it there's a cold, dark nebula in front of it. So comets and meteors coming up this month. The Perseids are just past, but we should be seeing some stragglers showing up for the next few days if you happen to be out under a clear sky. Probably a few fireballs straggling along, but you're going to have to wait for them. I think we're well past the point where we're getting a meteor a minute. I think we'll probably be getting a good meteor an hour now. But they're still out there, so if you are out observing, it's something to keep an eye out for. One good comet for us, 21P Jacobini-Zinner. Right now it's in Cassiopeia. It's a pretty bright object in a telescope. It's visible in binoculars. I haven't seen it with the naked eye or heard of anyone who can't see it. 8th magnitude was what I was told. It's hard to estimate the brightness of a comet because it's all smeared out. But that would seem to be a reasonable estimate. It's supposed to be at perihelion in September, where some people are claiming it will reach naked eye brightness. I should have a big disclaimer here, no promises. Comets are what they are. You can't go home without a variable star. Our Pegasi is one I've picked this time. Pegasus is a nice prominent constellation in the evening sky. It's, by 10 o'clock it's up there and good and obvious. It's a U Geminorum symbiotic variable, which means you've got a giant star orbiting around a white dwarf. The white dwarf is sucking material out of the loosely held outer atmosphere of the giant. It goes spiraling down in an accretion disk, and as it's spiraling down, clumps of it will spontaneously start fusion and ignite, and the brightness will go up by a few magnitudes almost overnight. It's very close to a 12.6 magnitude comparison star. If your telescope can get down to 12.6 easily, it's a very good object to look for. One of the reasons is because it's got a very convenient comparison star, almost exactly the same brightness, so you can tell with a second's glance whether it's an outburst or not. I do like these symbiotic variables as targets for variable stars. The reason is that the long period variable stars are pretty much being observed by automated star programs. They get a computerized telescope that will take an image every 3 days, and over the course of several months that long gentle curve will be picked up by a robot and no human involvement is necessary. These guys are much better because they can change 3 to 5 magnitudes overnight, and that's something where the automated programs are not responsive enough to catch up to it. So that's a niche still open to human observers, and I recommend that everybody with an interest in contributing to science get involved in that. The double star I picked this time was 59 Serpens. Nice and overhead. It's in the Milky Way. The reason I picked it was because I couldn't find it when I first looked for it a couple nights ago out at Starfest. I was looking for it with a 26 millimeter eyepiece. I found the brighter of the two stars but couldn't find the second. I increased the magnification and found it, and decided that it was a suitably challenging star to make it interesting for people to look for, without being so challenging that only the most brilliant of experts would be able to find it. Coming up, Spaceflight. Yeah, only one Falcon launch coming up. That's August 23rd. Go to YouTube, we'll see if they try landing the booster again. That's the only part that excites me about Falcon launches anymore, otherwise they're pretty much routine. A couple of Ariane launches from the ESA. The ISS will be passing over in early morning, starting on August 29th until the next meeting, 4 to 5 o'clock. If you're up looking for Mercury or you're looking for objects in Orion, keep an eye out for passing overhead. The exact times, as always, are on heavensabove.com. You can input your own location. It will give you the correct times. And the other big question about spaceflight right now is the Opportunity rover on Mars. Since the big dust storm, it has not resumed communicating with the Earthborne observers trying to do their Mars exploration with it. It'll be worth keeping an eye on it over the next few weeks to see if they do manage to reestablish contact, or whether that extremely long-running rover is finally finished. And that's what we have tonight. Okay, I guess that's it. Thank you very much.